how are we seeing Mark Zuckerberg then? How are we seeing his political strategy evolve?
We're seeing it evolve in a very extreme way, especially if you sort of rewind back even to as recently as, say, 2017, which I think we all remember when the kind of chattering classes out of D.C. in the media, in politics, were talking about Zuckerberg as maybe even running for president as a Democrat. And now we are seeing him really get close to the Trump administration. Meta donated $1 million to the inauguration. Mark Zuckerberg hosted a black tie event for Donald Trump. We've seen a lot of kind of Trumpification of policies within Meta, so dismantling of a civil rights group there, of getting rid of outside content moderators, weakening hate speech rules at the company. And so this is a really, really dramatic turnaround from that point in 2017, and even from the point, say, during the Obama era, when we saw a lot of engagement between Mark Zuckerberg, between Facebook, and the Obama era. And now we're seeing a similar type of engagement, but with Trump, very different politically.
Okay, so different politically, an embrace then by Meta and Zuckerberg of the MAGA movement, perhaps. But what are the risks then for Meta in this approach?
There are some really big risks here. And I think one of the concerns is that, you know, by trying to please Trump, you actually really alienate the sort of left-wing kind of user base. You know, there's been this kind of long view that Silicon Valley is, you know, kind of more left-leaning. Whether or not that's true, I think, is up for debate. But you alienate the users on that front. You alienate workers at Meta who, you know, some of them have very kind of left-leaning political views. Some of them have right-leaning political views. But then the concern is that the strategy doesn't work. That, you know, Trump himself has spent nearly a decade using Meta, using Facebook as something of a punching bag. So you've created this kind of, you know, enemy. It's really hard to kind of shift the move there so that you kind of end up just alienating everybody.
Right, okay, so that's the risk, but they must be doing it hoping for some benefit. So what could the upside be for Meta here?
Yeah, and I think that gets at a really important point, which is that there is strategy behind this. And I think with a lot of kind of, you know, corporate actions in the Trump age, it's a lot of like what doesn't happen. It's what CEOs are trying to avoid. And I think some of this could be Meta, it could be Zuckerberg trying to avoid getting targeted by some sort of, you know, retaliatory move from the Trump administration if they make some kind of policy, if they make some kind of product that the Trump administration doesn't like. But this also could be, you know, an attempt to kind of change some of the tech regulation that we've seen in the United States. And we also know that Zuckerberg and Biden did not have a close relationship. They never met personally. We know that the Biden administration really took a kind of negative view of the tech industry. And so there could be a strategic move here to try to kind of soften a lot of that hard stance the prior administration took.
Okay, really interesting developments there in terms of the politics in Silicon Valley. Let's think about what we've heard recently from the Trump administration via the US tax bill and what that means for businesses such as Meta. A lot of our coverage focused, of course, on the fiscal implications of the tax bill. But there are, for specific sectors, really interesting provisions here. The tax bill passed by the House, it's given the inclusion of provision targeting digital services taxes. Now, unpack this for me, Charlie, and help me understand.
Super interesting here. So this is Section 899, and this is in that bill that just passed the House last week. And this is something that Meta would like. And you could maybe see it as something of a legislative win. I mean, you know, the bill is not law yet. It's still passing through Congress. But basically, this would increase federal taxes on passive income earned by individuals and by investors in the United States from countries that have kind of what the U.S. would deem unfair tax regimes on the United States. So potentially included in this would be that UK digital services tax. It's that 2% levy on large search engines, on social media companies for the revenue generated by users in that country. And this is something that the Trump administration does not like. They see it as unfair. So this could be something that they are targeting here. This could be something that Facebook really likes, but also the rules would dictate that the U.S. would have to name the countries with these so-called unfair tax regimes. And so that could give some negotiating leverage, some negotiating time at least for, say, the UK to deal with this.